why is it that we're so focused on the physical when the brain is really our major intimate organ? And perhaps I may be stepping on some toes, but the question is it just that we don't know how to use our about this topic, no pun intended, okay? But with the love holiday approaching, we really got to talk about a few things. Why is it that we're so focused on the physical when the brain is really our major intimate organ? Why is that? We're going to talk about that today. And perhaps I may be stepping on some toes, but the question is it just that we don't know how to use our brain? I don't know. What do you think? Let's talk about it. We have some amazing panelists on this panel this day, whatever you're watching this day, whether it's morning, evening, or nighttime, it's your business. And we're so excited to have our physician assistant extraordinaire, Antonia Johnson, back on the couch. Hey, Antonia, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Good to see you.
I'm back on the couch with the HBC. I'm so excited.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Love it, love it. We're happy to have you back as always. And Bree, hey, what's up?
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
Yes, I'm glad to dish with you guys today. Yay.
Yay. And y'all remember Dr. Black. I know y'all remember Dr. Black because we all still taking notes from the last episodes, okay? And we're so excited to have Dr. Black back. And as you guys know, she is a professional psychologist who is also certified in marriage and family counseling. Okay, Dr. Black, we're happy to have you back. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we're going to get into this topic, okay? Because as you guys know, the sex industry is probably one of the most major industry that's out there, but it primarily, almost exclusively, focuses on the physical. But our brain is supposed to be the major organ. Let's talk about it. So do you guys ever consider the brain to be your major sex organ? Like, do you consider the brain?
Yeah, I mean, like the brain is a good sex organ once you get to know your partner, but, I'm not going to lie, the physical is what attracts you to the person, what gets you to get to know the person. But if they can't hold a decent conversation, you might not stay with the person. So it does matter.
I hear that. That's for sure. A good conversation is very much stimulating. Okay. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Antonia?
I definitely agree. I think physical attraction is the first thing that we see when we meet someone. So you may put them in a category like, oh, this guy looks hot. I wonder what he's like in the bedroom, opposed to, you might have someone that's emotionally and psychologically stimulating. And, that may turn you on completely. I think for me personally, a lot of people may agree, like as we get older, some of the things we were looking for changes, like opposed to, when I was younger, you may have had those folks that just look good and you want to hook up with. But as I get older, I'm looking for a partner. I'm looking for someone that's going to be a good husband. Someone's going to be a good spouse. Someone that is going to get a 401k started for me.
Okay.
Things have changed.
In this recession. Okay. That's major. I love it. So if we know this, and we know that the brain is supposed to be one of our primary, if not the primary sex organ or intimate organ, why aren't we focusing on the brain? Dr. Black, what do you think about that?
Sure. So I love what the ladies just said, because we're actually starting off with a foundation of preference, right? What feels good to me? What do I like? What am I conditioned to like? What am I used to? And that brings in the social cultural concept of attractiveness, desirability, intimacy. Intimacy, desirability, all of that actually changes over a lifetime, unless you marry younger, for instance, right? And you live your life out with that partner. However, even in that situation, there's going to be different levels of intimacy, right? And I wanted to actually bring in how that happens. And the reason why the brain is so important is because there is no disconnection between the brain and the body. So sociocultural would actually position us to actually be conditioned to actually visualize and actually see what we like. However, there are over 10 billion neurons in the brain. And those neurons actually collects the information over your lifetime and actually comes up kind of like Match, right? It's its own internal algorithm, right? If you look at any dating site, I'm not trying to promote or anything, but if you actually think of your brain as an algorithm, right? Men are a little more visual, but women are visual too. So there's not really too much of a difference between a female's brain and a male's brain when it comes to attractiveness, intimacy, and sex.
That is really interesting. I would have never thought that the genders were so close together, because oftentimes you hear stereotypically, I guess, that women we're a lot more emotional when it comes to our intimacy health, and men are more visual. But I guess I have been looking. I guess that is true. So then why, if we know this, and maybe this is more of a socio-political conversation now, but if we know this and we know that the brain is so important, and I like that you said that we are kind of storing and collecting information throughout our lifetime, and it's creating these preferences that we then act on as we get older. Why are so much of the industry focused on the physical? And do you guys think that that's perhaps why so many people have sexual dysfunctions and are unsatisfied with their sexual health?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to what like Dr. Black was mentioning about how society and culture shapes the way we view sex. I think over time, we're all born with some form of sexuality. But whether it's like our friends, our family, our upbringing, the way we view sex, it changes immensely. So for society, before like the 70s, like homosexuality was considered illegal. There were so many raids and so much criminalization against the act. And now we're here in 2023 and Pride Month is like a national thing. Target is having the rainbows from Dunkin' Donuts. They have rainbow donuts. So we're seeing they have everything. So it's changed from, what we considered, perverse to now something that's celebrated and even profitable for some of these organizations trying to cash in. So I feel like now there's a separation from the act and the desire. So before you could criminalize the act and people could be, on the down low, like, this is just something I do on my free time, but I'm not really straight or I'm not really into feet, whatever. We don't judge here. Opposed to if we're stating like, I'm identifying with being a foot lover and I'm into whatever I'm into, that leaves me susceptible and vulnerable to persecution and even criminalization and isolation from my friends and family who may think that I'm too out there with like my sexual desires.
Wow, I have questions, so I'm gonna let I'm gonna let y'all jump in because she just stirred a couple of things in my head. Why I guess I'm gonna shoot my question out there. So why are we so obsessed with controlling people's intimacy? Why is that always a controlling factor? Why are we always in people's bedrooms? That's the question. Like, why are we always in people's bedrooms? I mean, we're always talking about what people do in their bedroom. We're always trying to create these norms for everyone. And anything outside of that is considered to be perverse, like Antonia was saying. Why are we so obsessed with what people are doing behind closed doors?
Like you said, the control, like she said before, like in the 70s and even in the 80s and even in the 90s, there was some control, especially when you're speaking about homosexuality. It was deemed, wrong, bad, especially when you're speaking about the church, right? And a lot of people are still trying to keep that foundation the same because it has changed a lot. Now we have churches that are welcoming to the LGBTQIA community. But then you also have some other churches and religions and also people that are afraid of that being able to move forward and desperately trying to keep it the same. So,
but even in the heterosexual world, like people are obsessed with, do you use toys? Are you using toys? Oh my gosh, you use toys. You don't use toys. Like there's so much judgment around what people do behind closed doors. And it's always kind of, it blows my mind. Like, why do we even care?
Well, what I would say in regards to judgment, I believe that it's more than judgment, but it's curiosity actually sheltered by disdain. And what I mean by that is you have to be curious to judge something or attack it. And when we consider social conditioning, norms, family values, the time that we live in, legalism, right? Even the profession that you're in, right? The church that you're connected to, whatever it is, all of those factors actually designs a blueprint of how you actually express yourself. For instance, in the 1920s, it was modesty. We dressed different. Well, we weren't here, but
so I've heard. Not even my mom can tell me about this one, but no, you're right. You're right. Yeah. My grandparents were very, very modest.
Yes. So, what is normal at that time really shapes our desirability. Now our clothes are different. Things are a little more acceptable. There are more body parts that are shown, shapes, right? We're in a society where we can actually age backwards, whether that's through vitamins, plastic surgery,
vitamins. Like we're doing a whole lot of stuff.
Vegan diet.
I just heard about the guy that hired a team to help him stay young. I mean, we're doing too much. We're doing too much. But you're right. There's a lot going on.
Yes. And we have to remember and really normalize it. We're born as sexual beings. We're wired that way. We're wired for love. We're wired for mating to actually keep the human population alive. So those impulses are normal, but they're also modified by so many different factors. So I really love that we're talking about this, because the more we talk about it, the more we understand it. And linking it back to the brain is that you do everything with the brain. You attract with the brain. You mate with the brain. There is no separation. But if you really understood the attractiveness, the oxytocin, the dopamine that actually comes with attractiveness and reward and getting your partner, just like men, right? And so that is a slight difference I would add in regards to males and females, because you have the testosterone and the estrogen, right? So the motivation is slightly different, but the mating aspect, what it was actually wired for, how we were designed biologically, it is for mating. It is for love, right? Procreation. So
that's a great point. And thank you for breaking down the physiological differences between the hormones and neurotransmitters. I guess my question is, and for pointing out the differences from the 1980s to the 1950s, we talked about 1970s, we talked about, who do you think has evolved more when it comes to sexuality, men or women? Are the same? Part of me want to say women are more liberated, because society just in general tends to try to control women a whole lot. And in our sexuality has been no different than our voting rights and everything else. But so I want to say women, but maybe I'm wrong, because I also thought that men were more visual, significantly more visual than women, but we heard that's not the case. So have men and women evolved equally when it comes to our sexuality, or have women had to evolve more?
I think women have had to evolve more. And the only reason why I feel women had to evolve more is I think a lot of the responsibility when you think about sex is on us, because we bear children, right? So, but then you have this sexual liberation where women are not feeling like they have to wait till they get married and be in committed relationships where they can just have sex. But then that also comes with some responsibilities when you can get pregnant. Where as far as men, I don't think a lot of sexual responsibility is on men at all, like period. So I think it's a difference.
Y'all agree or don't agree? Because that's listen. She said what she said. Okay.
And I definitely agree. I agree. And I believe women have evolved more than men. And this is my opinion.
I love it.
But it's historical facts as well.
Uh-huh.
But, there is more liberation. There's more body positivity, body acceptance. We have more protection, more rights to our own body. We have contraception, right? We have choice. Women were not always liberated to actually have more than one sexual partner, for instance, right? It was actually shame to actually remarry. It was a shame to actually be over 25 and not married.
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
I defy that odd.
So I believe that, yes, we do have more choice, more liberation. Women are having children at a later age, for instance. We have more choice, right? And I believe that now more than ever, we take more control over our sexuality. Some more excessive than others, but we take control over it, and it's more allowed without punitive consequences.
I agree. I completely agree with you, ladies. I really do think that because of the social evolution and the political evolution of women and our freedoms in different realms, it also led to us being a lot more free when it comes to our comfortability with ourselves. Not to quote, a certain pop star icon, female icon song, but we're more comfortable with ourselves. We're definitely way more comfortable, and we're allowed now to be more comfortable, and we're kind of unapologetic about it. So now you have a lot of females getting behind even the sex industry brands, whether it's selling toys or things like that, and having conversations about it, on how to use things and how to basically understand your own sexuality and explore your own sexuality and things like that. So I definitely think we've come miles. That is definitely far from even my parents' sort of rearing. I wonder if we were to really explore this brain thing, right? Will guys follow through? Can we get partners to follow through with saying, I want you to make love to my brain? Like, are we to the point where we don't even have the tolerance to develop the capability of the brain when it comes to our sexuality and our intimacy? I personally feel like, you tell me make love to my brain, depending on what the situation is, I may not have time to speak to your brain.
I think definitely in a world, as we're talking about women being more liberated, especially with the modern Renaissance woman, we have multiple jobs, we are going to school, we have businesses, our spouses may experience similar things. So maybe sometimes the act is just the act. But I think we are taking our brain for granted in the power that it has in the bedroom. I think a lot of people may not even think about it, but stage fright. If you're so consumed with pleasing the other person or what the person thinks of you, you can dissociate. Your mind dissociates from your body. You're not in that moment anymore. You're not enjoying it. You have to actively kind of recenter yourself. Even if you don't like the way you look naked, your body's disassociating from that moment. You're not going to enjoy it. So people have different techniques. I know some people visualize what it's like to be having sex with themselves. Again, we don't judge. So there's different things that we kind of do to talk ourselves back in that moment. We're oh, it's not working. And we subconsciously talk ourselves back in that, bring our bodies back to, bring our minds back to our body in that moment. All right, you're doing good, or you're picking up on social cues from your partner. Those social cues are going to those million of neurons, as Dr. Black was talking about earlier, and giving you positive feedback like, okay, this is going good. Things are going great. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna switch it up. So I think we kind of take for granted that we're already using our brains.
That's really good. I do know several people who think of celebrities. I'm not going to call them out, but they do. This is things that they do. Y'all know they do. They do.
And when
you're right, people do dissociate us. And okay, I have another question. I'm just going to hold.
But before you move on, I want to add to what she said, because she's so right. Because when you are, excuse me, no judgment over here, but when you are about to climax, it is so mental. If it's one thing that takes your mind somewhere else, you're like, okay, I got to start as a woman all over again. Whereas men can get it really quickly when it comes to climaxing. As a woman, it is very mental. At least for me, it is.
I think a lot of women feel that way, that they have to mentally be present, I guess what you're saying. Or maybe I'm wrong. Dr. Black, are we wrong? Like now I'm like, wait a minute, are we wrong?
Well, I'm gonna gently build on that. There is no desirability or even getting to climax without imagination. And when we think of imagination and fantasy, the brain actually creates a condition for you to actually relax in that way, to be vulnerable. We have to remember intimacy means vulnerability as well. And when we think about making love to the brain per se, that looks a little bit different in everyone. And I love what you said about we're already using our brain, but not intentionally. Because there's something that happens to a woman's brain in the cerebellum when you do actually achieve climax. And about 20 seconds after you achieve climax, it actually releases oxytocin and makes the woman feel closer to the man. And that's why women have a harder time sometimes with relationships, sexual relationships without commitment. And so just tying that all in regards to plateau, there's something called the sexual cycle that Master and Johnson actually created. I believe they created in 1966, and then it's been built upon and modified slightly. You have the excitement, you have the orgasm, you have the plateau, and the resolution, right? So in order to get to the excitement phase, there has to be a fantasy, there has to be a capacity to play. And this is why there's difficulties sometimes in marriages and relationships where the man and the woman is always working, right? There's a lot of rigidity. They lose their passion because there's not a lot of play. So in order to build up to that point of fantasy and to desire, there has to be play without a sexual goal in mind as well. So I'll pause there, but.
I think you're right. I think people focus so much on the G spot where they should be focusing on the B spot when it comes to essentially our pleasure and ability to attain the climax of pleasure. I wonder sometimes if we're still kind of caught up in making other people responsible for our own pleasure, as opposed to really working on and I don't mean from a physical standpoint, but really understanding ourselves enough to know what truly pleases us and really developing our ability to, I guess, expand our imagination, as you were mentioning, Dr. Black, to be able to do these play throughout the day. Or are we so caught up in our day-to-day lives going from point A to point B that we don't allow the time to mature and to develop our sexual health? But once we get into the bedroom or the kitchen, no judgment, or outside, no judgment, we just expect, just say, listen, I know what y'all do. We have these conversations in the office. no judgment, but we just kind of feel like things are supposed to fall into place and just happen, without feeling like this is a part of our life. Like we work on our careers and we feel that our careers is important. We work on our spiritual lives. We feel that our spiritual life is important. We work on our relationships, but we don't really work on our sexual health.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Are we stuck in thinking that it's automatic, that you kind of, people do make you think it's automatic. Like no one really trains you and rears you for your first time. I could tell you that for sure. People are not having these conversations. My teenagers will tell you that. And people just kind of figure kind of like motherhood, that you're supposed to just kind of figure it out. Why do we put such low priority on these critical areas of our life?
I think there's still kind of like a little bit of taboo. Do they even do sex education in school anymore? I didn't have sex education.
I can't keep up with the states and their individuality.
Well, in California, I know we didn't.
You're not going to talk about Florida.
Well, Florida is their own universe. I don't remember getting the sex education talk at school. I definitely didn't get the sex, birds and the bees talk at home. I think that societally and culturally, it's kind of cool to put it in songs, like this is the new thing to do, and doing it with this and doing it with that. But we're not really having these conversations when we're just sitting down with our girlfriends. Like we may just this is what I did last night, but no one's like really stopping and being like, how did you feel in that moment? Like, what did you derive from that? Like, no, we're not getting into the nitty gritty because I feel like it's still just kind of fun. And if you know how to do it, you know how to do it. And if you don't, that's your problem.
Yeah. Is intimacy and sex the same?
No, I don't think so.
How do you distinguish?
I think, when you have sex, some people just have sex and not have to have an emotional connection with the person, Intimacy is really knowing the person and, having in my opinion, having some type of feeling about the person, which does make the sex a lot better, in my opinion, But I wanted to also, say this too. I do feel that when it comes to us as women, I don't feel like it's ever been pushed for us to really enjoy sex. To me, I believe that when sex is discussed amongst women, it's more so, and when I was growing up, was more so about what a man would like, what a man enjoy. I remember my aunt, when I was like 13, she said, and I have very small breasts, and she said they're different, since I had the kids, but they're very small before the kids. And I remember my aunt telling me, she said, oh, don't worry. All they ever ask for is a mouthful. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay, okay, auntie.
I feel like that's cultural too. They always.
That generation.
Right.
We all got
I don't think it was meant for us. I think only now it's like really pushed for us to really enjoy sex, and people are really asking us as women, what do we want? How do we want to enjoy that experience with our partner? But I think, for the most part, it's never been pushed for us to really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that Dr. Black, did you want to add something to that?
I'll just briefly add to that. One of the things that I wanted to reflect on is if the communication is not intimate outside of the bedroom, it's not going to be intimate in the bedroom. And no one is going to teach us how to actually understand our own pleasure, but you have to be comfortable enough with your partner to actually guide and go through that experience together and take your time. And times, especially as women, we don't really feel confident enough to actually correct, right? Even men too, right? Correct, explore, take your time, right? Really have a conversation about what worked well, what didn't work well. And so I just wanted to add in about the communication and the safety in that.
Yeah, I like that you ladies are pointing to that, because I would definitely say one of the folks are sharing a lot on the media, okay? But on the social and the media. And one of the things that I really like that's trending is some of these videos where people are demonstrating intimacy in a non-sexual way. Literally just spending time gazing into each other's. Now, granted, these are staged for the media, but I do like the concept of it. You know, whether it's a couple staring at each other or exploring touch. Like, I feel like we have so many senses, but we don't really explore them when it comes to this aspect of our life. So I do like the fact that people are exploring just even having a moment of just touching each other and having that type of communication, or staring at each other. Like, how long can you stare at someone before you get uncomfortable? Like, can you stare at your partner for a long period of time without saying anything? A lot of people get really uncomfortable like that. You know, people are uncomfortable even with being intimate with the lights on. You know, you have the two groups, lights on, lights off, you know, and usually a lot of people who are lights off group is because they have some type of vulnerability, insecurity. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Listen, thank you. They have some type of insecurity about themselves, about their body. And oftentimes that's women, because we have so much pressure societally when it comes to our body and how we are shaped, especially even after childbirth, which blows my mind. But it is what it is. And so I think we do need to explore these other aspects of intimacy that we haven't tapped into. How do we develop these areas? Like, what are some things that you think what would you like to see trending when it comes to this? That's my take. That's what I want to see trending when it comes to intimacy and intimacy health. And by the way, sex ed did not teach anything like that. They taught just the mechanics, and there was no teaching about responsibility outside of, I guess, just the technical aspect of it, like birth control exists and that's just it. But there was no actual teaching about responsibility of your sexual health and intimacy and your partner and things like. They didn't teach none of that, and that's what I think we're missing. But what would you ladies like to see trending? What's a good direction to go in?
Something I read recently, or an article I came across. I don't know if it spoke to me just as a person, like growing up in like a religious household. You know, you have sex before marriage, you're going straight to hell. And that shuts down the conversation for a lot of teens, mothers, fathers, just to have a healthy conversation about it. A lot of people shut down, and I feel like for me, other people, it turns into a perversion, because you're hiding behind closed doors and doing everything because you don't have anyone to talk to. So I read something that was just stating God wants you to have sex. Now, however you
controversial statement.
Yeah, it's a controversial
but clearly
statement.
He made it, so that is true.
But however you take it, take it. Because if we keep having this like dissociation between like how we feel, how we want to feel, and the act of sex, and if there's this mismatch, there's going to be more perversion, there's going to be more sexual assault, there is going to be I think just chaos in the sex realm. So that's my controversial statement. God wants you to have sex. However you interpret that.
Listen, she said what she said. Okay.
Right.
I love it.
God told me to do
Church
this.
mother,
right. Whatever context y'all do it in, whatever y'all come to agreement with, that's okay. But I feel like that's a really, really big like elephant in the room when it comes.
It is. It absolutely
sexuality.
Is. It is. And listen, Songs of Solomon. That's all I gotta say. Somehow we skip over that whole, and we sometimes misinterpret it too. But nonetheless, you're right. It has always been used as a controller when it comes to people's sexuality. It has been religion, and not just Christianity, like a number of religions, right? And so, and so that statement is really powerful, because it reminds us that basically what Dr. Black was saying was that our origin is that we are sexual beings. Why does that make us so uncomfortable? You know, and it's yeah. Anyway, let's take the shame out of it. I agree with you. Where would you ladies like to see things trending? Where can we get better?
I think being more comfortable to have discussions like we're having right now about it will help us, because everyone's sexual experience comes from, different spaces. Some people deal with sexual dysfunction, where their first experience was not warranted, and so when they are ready, that experience for them can be based off of their trauma. And so I just think, it's just different for many people based up your upbringing, which, as we spoke about the church and how they demonize sex, or even based on like molestation amongst children and when they become adults and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, you done went heavy. That's saying stuff. But you're 100% right, though. These are topics that we need to get more comfortable talking about, talking about how trauma plays into our sexual health, because like Dr. Black was saying, we're collecting these experiences and information, and it's forming and molding how we view our levels of intimacy. So you're absolutely right. It's yeah. Dr. Black, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you brought up a very important point of curiosity, because our first experience alone, preceded by our upbringing in our household, actually socializes and normalizes what is normal for us, per se. And what I mean by that, there is a few things that I actually wrote down in regards to sharing the things that can get in the way of intimacy and sex. And some of the things that I see in working with patients is, in regards to difficulties with arousal and interest, is delivery after birth, right? Of course, that causes, some conflicts there. Have to wait 6 weeks, right?
Yes.
At least.
Please, ladies, please. And your partners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So depression, lack of pleasure, right?
Yes.
And when I mean lack of pleasure, it is the sexual communication between the partners, but also unfulfilled in the relationship, right? If there's financial problems, you're probably not going to be that interested, right? Mm-hmm. But also it can be hormone related as well, body image concerns, attractiveness to your partner, especially if you've been there a long time. There's injuries, there's aging, right? There's so many factors in this. Low libido, medications that we may take, nutrition. Nutrition has a huge impact on energy, on
absolutely,
our libido, attract all of that. Performance anxiety, I believe you brought it up before in this space about being hypervigilant on yourself rather than the partnership, right? The intimacy. But also infidelity, right? Unforgiveness can actually really wreak havoc.
That may be a deal breaker in some circumstances.
Yes. Other illnesses, drug use, alcohol, guilt, shame relating to religious expectations, low self-esteem. So it does produce different disorders like ED, right? Premature ejaculation. There's female and male orgasm disorders. And I cannot stress the fact of how much performance anxiety impacts. It's the anxiety, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I just wanted to reflect. It definitely plays a factor.
I'm so glad you went over that list, because oftentimes when patients come in and they have identified some type of sexual dysfunction, the expectation is that there is a pill that's going to solve everything, right? I know you've been in this. I know you have been in that.
And it's always the last thing. They're coming for diabetic management,
Right.
medication
And then
refills. You're walking out the door like, by the way.
By the
Like,
way.
People are even afraid to talk to their healthcare providers.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true. And oh, that's such a good point. Oh my gosh, that's such a good point, because they always do wait until it's like they've gone through sort of the typical conversations, and then it's the by the way when they start to feel more comfortable with you, that they'll ask about their sexual dysfunction. But I'm so glad that you went over that list, because oftentimes I think the expectation is that people don't realize how complex our sexual health is and our intimacy is, that they expect that, oh, it must be such a simple answer. And I like the fact that you also stress the relational aspects of it, right? So sometimes your sexual dysfunction or sexual health issue isn't something that's isolated to you. It may be something that's relational. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize. And so oftentimes I say, well, let's talk to your partner and bring him in as a part of our conversation, or her as a part of our conversation, so I can get a better sense of the dynamics, and then decide whether or not you need to go see a physical, I was about to say physical therapy. I'm back on the physical. Whether that's you need to go see a sex therapist is what I want to say, or like Dr. Black, a marriage and family counselor. Or perhaps there's something organic going on. And sometimes for a lot of women, it is exhaustion. Like a lot of my patients, I find like they're so exhausted between taking care of the kids and taking care of the households, and sometimes also on top of that being career women, that by the time they get into that particular space, they're just extremely exhausted, and they haven't even realized their level of exhaustion. So that nutrition is important, making sure you sleep well, you have good energy, because if all those things are off, ain't nothing going down in the bedroom, at least nothing that's going to be exciting for anybody. So I love that tip. I love everything each one of you brought up, such great points. And don't forget, God wants you to have sex. Take it how you want to take it.
Take it how you want to take it.
They are gonna come for you.
They're gonna come for me.
Don't come for her, because all she's doing is sharing the facts. She said, take it how you want to take it. Okay. And if you want to follow her though, but in the safe realm.
Yes.
Antonia, if they technically want to follow you, how would they follow you?
You can follow me on IG under Mascara Medicine.
Love it. I love that time. I think it's one of the best handles. Love it. Mascara Medicine. And she ain't kidding. Look at that beat face. Okay. She is not kidding. Okay. Come on, author Bree, singer / Make sure you mention the name that your book is under, so that they know how to find you.
Oh yeah, you can go to Amazon. If I dream it, I can be it. Yes.
I know that's
available on Amazon.
And how can they follow you and your gorgeous twin?
Yes, my IG is Bree Singer 1. Bree Singer on Facebook. Yep.
Love it. Has Dr. Black with the list, the facts, and the historical context. Okay. Where can they find you and sign up for your sessions?
Well, I'm definitely happy to give referrals and resources, or if you have any further questions, or even look for a sex therapist or a marriage and family therapist, I'll be able to provide that to viewers as well. And you can contact me via email at therapy@drtamalapractice.com. And it's DRTAMALAPRACTICE.com.
Got it. And we got you. We're going to put it in the content of this video. So you'll have Bree's books, okay, and Dr. Black's info. And when you're done with all of that, make sure you come on back and check out our other sessions. These ladies have done amazing sessions, panel discussions. Catch them all. We talked about genetics with Antonia before, okay? That was a beat conversation, okay? Talking about them genetics and all y'all that are trying to go back to your origins, okay? And with
get
Bree,
them reparations.
Listen, and I know y'all are still taking notes from Bree from the last session. She broke down on misogynoir, okay? Listen. We talked about it. We brought the facts. And let me tell you, she's a hip hop culture textbook. Okay. All right. And when you're done there, make sure you get your life together and understand breaking generational issues, let's say. We try not to use the other word because I'm just like, I just don't be feeling that word sometimes. But we try to break down some generational issues. And get your life together. Make sure you take them notes from Dr. Black, okay? She done schooled y'all on so many topics. And when you're done there, we got a whole lot of other topics you can watch. So as always, I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of HealthyBump.club on Instagram. And right here, it's at Healthy Bump Club without the dot. Okay. Love y'all. Love y'all for watching. And when you're done watching all these videos, make sure you check out our Apple link if you like Apple, because we're an Apple Music partner. And then when you're done with that, go ahead and hit yourself up with some apparel and let folks know that you're part of this village. Okay. And when you're done with that, we'll see you in the next episode.